Speaking of the Moogai, Eric and I have a review of the Moogai. Here is the plot summary behind this film. Sarah and Fergus, they are a young Aboriginal couple. Sarah has just given birth to their second baby, and everything seems so fine because she's doing really well at her job. She's currently on maternity leave. She is I'm not going to say the sole breadwinner, but she is the alpha dog in the house when it comes to making money. She is doing really success. She's very successful, but right now she's on maternity leave, and I believe her husband is a contractor or works in carpentry. Her husband Fergus, played by Maine Wyatt. The lead, Sarah, is played by Shari Sebbens. I will say the one shining star of the Moogai is, in my opinion, Shari Sebbens. She's excellent as Sarah, a woman who is pushing aside her Aboriginal roots because she was raised by a white family. And so that push and pull with the Moogai, because the first act centers on this, it's inspired by historical fact. You have, what is it, Eric? You have these Aboriginal families. A lot of these kids were taken away from a lot of the people in the area. So a lot of Aboriginal kids grew up not with their parents or their culture or their family, and rather sometimes they were adopted into just a different type of family, an Australian family. Okay, that's not Aboriginal.
It's great that you're starting the review off with this, because the movie also started off with that and then never touched on it for the rest of the movie.
Yes. Here's the thing. The Moogai is a creature, and this is not a spoiler. This creature is supposedly a creature who steals kids. Okay, so that is, what is it, Eric? An allegory, a metaphor, or just a monster is symbolic of the government or a different culture, Australian culture.
Demon washing on actual historic event, maybe.
Okay. So
slavery didn't happen in America. It was monsters that did it.
It's symbolism. They're couching this whole.
See, there's a difference between, like, symbolism would be something like in Sinners, where they take the vampires and it's a clear metaphor for something else, and it's very smartly done. With this, it's, hey, here's that thing that happened, and don't worry, it wasn't actually this place that did it, the people that did it. It was really a monster that did it. It's not an allegory. It's replacing the villains with an actual monster and then throwing the blame. It's scapegoating the fictional monster, instead of actually dealing with the event.
The real monster, yeah, which is the real event. Good point, Eric. That's a good point. But in the first act, and you have those two separate monsters in the first act, okay, which leads us to the rest of the movie. And Sarah, she starts, when she's on maternity leave, she starts seeing a creature, possibly not the Moogai, but a young girl with her eyes become white, or it might be a spirit. She sees some kind of supernatural presence invading her domicile.
Creepy children.
Yeah, babe. Which one? What do you say?
I think creepy children.
Creepy children. Yeah,
the worst of all horror.
All right. Creepy children in the house. As the narrative progresses, Sarah gets mentally unhinged, step by step. But the problem is, there is also a lot of just things that happen within her life that a lot of people are not believing what she's going through. And then she's becoming very irritable. Bottom line is, she has to protect her new baby and also her young daughter and her husband from this possible sinister spirit or creature, which is the Moogai. This movie is written and directed by John Bell. I will get into my very quick mini review and then hand it over to Eric Holmes. Again, the shining star in this movie was Shari Sebbens' performance. I thought she was great. There was a slow burn. I didn't mind a lot of the stuff that Eric was talking about as just a generic, well-done thriller. I was enjoying it until the third act, which I felt it left a couple of big plot holes. There's one plot hole it left. And then also we have to mention that Sarah has a mother, Aboriginal mother, and she's in and out of the movie as well. I would have liked to have seen more of her and more of her culture spotlighted as well in the Moogai, not just as an answer to the creature elements, but more of just everything seems so. I know the third act is a race against time kind of situation, but I was not completely locked in by the third act. All that said, I was fine with the Moogai as a mild recommendation based on Shari Sebbens' performance. I thought it was good, and the actual execution of 2/3 of the narrative, which was well done. I just wish it was a little bit better on the third act. I think there was a little bit of a dropping of the ball. That said, still a mild recommendation. 3 stars for me. Eric Holmes, your review of the Moogai.
Oh, 3 stars. That's generous.
Yeah.
Yeah. This, I mentioned it earlier. This movie starts off with opening titles of the Aboriginal people would basically be whitewashed. They're basically describing ethnic cleansing of the area.
Right. No, not killing, but the cleansing is like they're taking the kids away from the area. Right.
Call it a soft genocide, if you will. But yeah, it just seemed with that opening title, it's like, whoa, okay, that's interesting. I'm not familiar with this story. Let's see what goes on there. And they open up with it and go towards that period of time for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, something like that.
That was well executed. The first act was well done because you had a sense of mystery.
First act, that was like
the first 5 minutes. It was well done.
Yeah, it might be the first act, but like when you say first act, you're thinking like a big chunk. But then they almost
opening moments.
They almost immediately cut to 2025, and then we're following Sarah, which I wasn't a great fan of her character just in general.
She was irritable.
And then it just becomes a really not very great horror movie. You basically, okay, we got steak night tonight going on. Now, if I say we got steak night going out, you're pretty excited for steak, right? You're going to come out
100%.
I got my fork, got my steak knife. I'm ready to go.
I'm ready to taste some meat, some really good meat from Eric Holmes.
If I put down a piece of warm bread in front of you, you're gonna be a little disappointed, aren't you?
No, I'm gonna say I like the warm bread. Where's the steak? You whetted my appetite for most. Yeah, you helped. It's like a sponge.
The steak was there. I just didn't give it to you. I gave you warm bread instead.
Okay.
They open when the movie starts off with titles, you think that's gonna have something to do with a big chunk of what you're gonna see going forward.
Okay.
They promise, not the trailer. Now, you watch a trailer or promise something that ultimately doesn't deliver. That's on marketing. This is the opening titles, the title card of the movie. That's the movie promising you this is what the movie's going to be. And it got me locked in. I'm ready to go. And then you don't even engage with that thing at all throughout the rest of the movie. You don't show any of it. I'm like, I'm here watching this atrocity that you brought up. I'm thinking we're watching like a serious movie or take on this thing that you movie brought up, told me about, prepared me for, and now you're just giving me like a half-assed, creepy children demon monster movie.
How about Devil's Advocate, Eric? Devil's Advocate. What if someone says, "Oh, we were trying to leave things in abstraction"? When some people say, "Oh, we're trying to leave things," is that a cop out? You think the fact that they didn't, like you said, engage with the Moogai?
They didn't engage with it at all. Like, it's barely touched on throughout the rest of the movie, but not very well and not in any sort of interesting way. It's just,
look, I will say this is
it's even without that opening bit, it's still not a great horror movie. So it's like one of those fast demon children aren't scary. The only thing this movie has going for it is when you finally get to see the Moogai, it's a little silly, but it's cool. Cool character design.
But I think I agree with you. It's almost a little too late because we wanted to engage in the world building behind the Moogai before that. So when
I wanted to engage in the initial idea or the initial thing the opening title card brought up, but the movie didn't even want to do that. Even the opening bits where they were back in that time, they didn't spend much time. They're like, "Oh, let's get out of here." I'm like, just cut all that out because you clearly don't want to do anything with that.
And Sarah's Aboriginal mother, she should have had the most interesting story out of the whole thing. She's the one who actually
had an interesting story in this.
No, but you know what I'm saying, because she witnessed the Moogai as a child. So that's where you bring all of that culture and world building and trying to connect those two monsters, like you said, the human monster at the beginning with those officials, and then the Moogai, the supernatural monster. That's not even, like you said, engaged, because we don't get to see much of Sarah's mother and what her backstory is too much. So,
I mean, that was probably a silver lining. Didn't care. Just, I like, if you're talking about a backstory in that, like the actual atrocity that went, like that would have been interesting. Her backstory is the atrocity was actually the Moogai and didn't really have.
I will also say
this was not a good movie.
I will also say this movie bit off a little bit more than it could chew, but if it actually stayed in the house, and was more of a claustrophobic domicile. And I know you're not a big fan of the creepy children stuff. If it was just like that straight singular horror experience, I would have been fine. But the third act really, it went a little bit off the rails for me. That said, I'm still giving it a generous 3 stars. So you guys might find something in that I didn't. What?
First of all, I don't think this bit off more than it could chew. I think what it did is it filled its plate and didn't eat any of it.
Very good point. Okay.
But there's also stuff in this that doesn't make sense. Like early on, like Sarah, like her and her husband's in bed, and the kid comes to the door. Says, "Mom, can I sleep with you?" Huh? It's like, you can't be afraid of your own child. Like, we know as the audience that things are not right, and we've seen a horror movie before, and this movie's definitely doesn't
She was heavily
come out of left field or anything. It's pretty obvious, what things are going to happen, but the character doesn't know that. Like this does the thing where characters know stuff that the audience do, but that character shouldn't know those things.
I will say this: it was well shot. I liked the look of the guy. It was fine. Oh, you were like, yeah.
I mean, it was in focus. It looked good sometimes. Good for you. And it's literally the bare minimum of what a movie should do.
Okay, so that is the Moogai. Eric Holmes, what is your rating on the Moogai? I gave it 3 stars. How about you?
I would go a 1.5 on this.
Okay.
I think without that opening, the kind of, you know what this is. First time I had salt and vinegar chips. I had a big old handful of them. I was a kid. Big old handful of them. Shoved them in my mouth. But I thought they were sour cream and onion. As soon as I ate it, I was like,
oh,
what?
Bad memory.
Those went bad.
Those went bad. So that is.
So that's why we're at a 1.5. Because I thought I was going to eat salt, or I thought I was going to eat sour cream and onion chips, but this movie's salt and vinegar chips. Unfortunately, even now I like salt and vinegar chips because I know what they are. I was able to ease into them.
Yeah.
I like salt and vinegar chips now. But even then, it's not a great salt and vinegar chip either.
Wow. All right. So that is the Moogai. That's 1.5 stars for Eric Holmes. I gave it 3 stars. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. For more movie and television reviews and interviews, please subscribe to my Deepest Dream channel. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And as always, thanks so much for your support. Take care.